Hey guys, tonight we're embarking on a very slow, very gentle ascent into the mists of time, specifically to the heart of the Andes, where a city, once bustling with life, simply vanished. Picture this. You're not hiking, not scrambling, but gently floating upwards as if carried on a lazy cloud. Below you, the peaks are sharp teeth against a perpetually bruised sky. But here, in this ethereal space, the air is thin, crisp, and surprisingly soothing. You can almost feel the chill seeping into your bones, a delicious shiver that promises a deep, uninterrupted slumber. Imagine the silence, broken only by the whisper of the wind through ancient stones, a sound that, even now, carries the faintest echo of long-forgotten footsteps. You're moving through cloud forests, where the humidity clings to your skin like a soft, invisible blanket, and the scent of damp earth and unseen blossoms drifts up to greet you. There are no sudden drops, no vertigo-inducing views, just a smooth, almost imperceptible rise into the heart of the mystery. You're not quite sure what you'll find, or even if you'll find it, but the journey itself is the reward, a gentle lullaby whispered by the mountains. Of course, in real life, you'd probably be huffing and puffing, wondering if that last alpaca trekking agency was entirely legitimate and definitely not thinking about sleep. You probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes in this altitude without a very strong cup of coca leaf tea. But for now, just imagine. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're feeling up to it, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see how far these sleepy stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. As you drift higher, the world below recedes into a hazy dream. You pass through layers of mist that seem to cling to the mountainsides like old lace, obscuring and then revealing tantalizing glimpses of the landscape. This isn't a rushed expedition. It's more like a geological sigh, stretching out for eons. You're moving at the pace of continental drift, which, let's be honest, is probably faster than I walk after a particularly large dinner. The air thins, yes, but it also cleanses, leaving your mind feeling delightfully unburdened. You're not here to conquer. You're here to observe, to absorb the gentle echoes of a forgotten past. The first signs appear subtly, almost imperceptibly, as if the mountains themselves are slowly exhaling secrets. You might catch a glimpse of a perfectly cut stone, half buried in the verdant undergrowth, or a faint terrace carved into a slope where no modern farmer would dare to tread. These aren't grand pronouncements, just quiet murmurs from a forgotten age, a gentle invitation to lean in closer. Historians still argue whether the earliest Andean settlements intentionally sought out these high, remote locations for defensive purposes, or if it was simply a matter of available arable land. Regardless, the dedication required to build anything substantial here is truly mind-boggling. Imagine hauling every single stone, shaping every single beam, all without the aid of modern machinery or even the helpful grumble of a coffee machine to get you through the early morning chill. It puts our struggles with flat-pack furniture into perspective, doesn't it? These weren't people who rushed. They were people who understood the rhythm of the mountains, the patience required to coax life from unforgiving slopes. You start to notice the way the ancient pathways, now barely discernible, hugged the contours of the land, avoiding sudden drops or treacherous ascents where possible. It's as if the original inhabitants built their roads to be as soothing as possible, even then, perhaps unknowingly, laying the groundwork for your peaceful journey tonight. It's a subtle dance between human endeavor and natural majesty, a harmony that was to last for centuries before its quiet unraveling. As you continue your silent ascent, the air grows thinner still, carrying with it a distinct scent of damp earth and something ancient, something that smells like forgotten history. You're not quite at the city yet, but you're entering its sphere of influence, feeling the subtle pulse of a civilization that once thrived here. The vegetation begins to shift too, The dense cloud forest gives way to more resilient, stunted trees, and then to hardy grasses and the occasional splash of vibrant, improbable flowers clinging to rocky outcrops. It's a landscape that screams survival, yet somehow these people made it sing. You notice the land itself seems to be whispering secrets, shaping itself around human endeavors from centuries past. Here, a gentle slope that seems too regular to be natural. There, a faint pattern of stones beneath a layer of moss, hinting at a long-forgotten wall. It's like discovering an old photograph that's faded with time, but the outlines of what was are still discernible if you squint just right. The first definite signs of human presence start to emerge, not with a flourish, but with a quiet, confident assertion. You might drift past a series of meticulously crafted agricultural terraces, rising in gentle steps up a mountainside. They look less like farmed land and more like works of art, each level perfectly angled to catch the sparse sunlight and manage the precious Andean rainfall. Imagine the sheer effort involved in shaping these slopes, moving tons of earth and stone by hand, all to cultivate potatoes and quinoa. It almost makes your own efforts to grow a houseplant feel inadequate. These weren't just functional structures. They were statements of intent, a quiet defiance against the harsh mountain environment. They were built to last, a testament to a deep understanding of their land, and they still stand, even as the city itself has faded. Historians still argue whether the sophisticated terracing techniques developed independently in various Andean cultures or spread from single, pioneering innovation. It's the kind of question that keeps academics up at night, while you, thankfully, can simply drift off. Then, you might notice the stones. Not just any stones, but perfectly cut, interlocking blocks, fitting together so tightly you couldn't slip a blade of grass between them. These aren't the rough-hewn boulders you'd expect from early settlements. No, these speak of incredible precision, a deep knowledge of masonry, and a profound respect for the material. They hint at a society that valued meticulous craftsmanship, perhaps even viewing it as a spiritual act. It's a quirk, really, how these stones, so flawlessly integrated, can survive for centuries, silently broadcasting the skill of their makers, long after the hands that laid them have turned to dust. You might wonder if they used some sort of ancient, super strong cement, but no, it was just pure, unadulterated engineering genius. Perhaps they had very patient apprentices, or maybe they just knew the perfect angle for every chisel strike. If only IKEA instructions were this clear. The deeper you go, the more the silence seems to deepen, but it's a comforting silence, not an unsettling one. It's the kind of quiet that allows you to hear your own breath, to feel the gentle beat of your heart, to truly relax into the atmosphere. The air here isn't just thin, it's clean, untainted by modern pollutants, a refreshing antidote to the hustle and bustle of your day. You can almost taste the purity. This is a place where time slows down, where the frantic pace of the modern world feels utterly irrelevant. You are becoming part of the landscape, a silent observer in a very old story. The first glimpses of actual structures are not grand revelations, but subtle hints. A corner of a wall peeking out from under a dense growth of ivy, a doorway almost entirely swallowed by encroaching vegetation, a faint pattern in the stones underfoot that suggests a long-lost plaza. It's like finding a particularly shy animal in the wild. You have to be patient, observant, and quiet to truly see it. The mountains hold their secrets close, revealing them only to those who approach with respect and, perhaps, a touch of sleepy curiosity. You're now truly within the embrace of the vanished city, though its presence is still more felt than overtly seen. The air, surprisingly, feels warmer here, as if the ancient stones retain a gentle memory of the sun that once warmed them. This was once a vibrant hub, a place where people lived and loved, argued and laughed, all under the watchful gaze of these colossal peaks. Imagine it at its zenith. The gentle murmur of voices echoing through the plazas, the soft shuffle of sandals on stone, the distant sound of a pan flute carrying on the breeze. This was not a roaring metropolis. It was more akin to a thriving, close-knit community, a mountain village writ large, where everyone knew their neighbor and shared in the triumphs and tribulations of daily life. The city's golden age, you realize, wasn't marked by grand conquests or massive empires, but by a quiet mastery of its environment. Think of it as a sustained period of ingenious adaptation, where every challenge presented by the high-altitude landscape was met with a clever, often elegant, solution. It was a time when the relationship between humans and nature was deeply symbiotic, a dance of respect and survival. You might imagine the farmers tending their terraces with a reverence born of necessity, their hands calloused, but their spirits attuned to the subtle shifts of the seasons. There was no rush, no frantic race against time. Life moved at the pace of the sun and the flow of the mountain streams. It was a golden age of quiet prosperity, not one of flashy wealth, but of sustainable well-being. Historians still argue whether their prosperity was primarily due to unique agricultural innovations or strategic control over specific trade routes for rare resources. It's a chicken and egg kind of puzzle, best pondered while half asleep. What's truly fascinating is how this golden age was sustained. It wasn't about imposing their will on the land, but about understanding its rhythms and working with them. Picture their ancestors, perhaps millennia before, slowly pushing back against the wilderness, not with axes and fire, but with patient hands and a deep understanding of water flow. You might imagine them developing intricate irrigation systems, not roaring torrents, but gentle channels that coaxed water to where it was needed most, mimicking the natural pathways of rain. It was a testament to their patience, a quality that seems almost mythical in our fast-paced world. These were people who understood that building a sustainable future meant thinking not just years, but generations ahead. Their planning was literally etched into the landscape, a subtle but enduring legacy. Consider their unique form of governance during this period. It's believed to have been less about a single, all-powerful ruler and more about a council of elders or community leaders, whose wisdom was rooted in centuries of lived experience in this demanding environment. Decisions were likely made slowly, deliberately, ensuring everyone had a voice, or at least felt heard. You can almost hear the gentle murmur of discussions in a central plaza, not heated debates, but calm deliberations under the vast Andean sky. It was a time when social cohesion was paramount, a necessity for survival in such a remote and challenging place. There was no room for petty squabbles. Everyone had to pull their weight, quite literally, to ensure the well-being of the collective. It was a social structure built on mutual reliance, where the strength of the community was its greatest asset. It's enough to make you wonder if perhaps our modern obsession with speed and instant gratification might be, well, a bit silly in comparison. Even their celebrations would have been subtle, deeply connected to the cycles of the earth and the heavens. Imagine quiet ceremonies honoring the sun, the moon, and the mountain spirits, perhaps involving rhythmic drumming that mimicked a heartbeat, or gentle chants that seemed to blend with the wind. There wouldn't have been dazzling fireworks or loud revelry. More likely, it was communal feasting on simple, nourishing foods, sharing stories by firelight, and a profound sense of gratitude for the bounty of the mountains. It was a deep, quiet joy, rooted in the secure knowledge of their place in the world, a contentment that slowly settled over the entire community like a comforting blanket. This was the quiet zenith of their existence, before the whispers of change began to carry on the wind. As you linger in the spectral presence of this ancient city, you begin to observe the gentle rhythm of daily life as it might have unfolded during its golden age. It wasn't a life of grand drama, but one of quiet routines, deeply intertwined with the natural world. Imagine waking with the first blush of dawn painting the mountain peaks, the air crisp and clean, carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp earth. There would be no jarring alarm clocks here, just the slow, natural awakening of the body to the rising sun. You might hear the distant bleating of llamas, the soft clatter of pottery, or the low hum of a spindle as someone began their morning tasks. Your day, if you were a resident, might begin with a simple meal, perhaps a bowl of quinoa porridge, warm and nourishing, or some dehydrated potatoes rehydrated with broth. There are no elaborate breakfast buffets, certainly no drive-through coffee. Life was dictated by the immediate needs of sustenance and survival, yet it carried a profound sense of purpose. You might see families gathering water from a clear mountain spring, the liquid icy cold and pure, a reminder of the lifeblood of their existence. It was a chore, yes, but also a quiet ritual, a moment of connection with the source of their well-being. This wasn't about efficiency. It was about respect for the resources that sustain them. Historians still argue whether their diet was largely vegetarian or if small game played a more significant role in daily protein intake. It's the kind of detail that only truly matters if you're planning a very authentic historical dinner party. Then would come the work, which for most meant tending to the terraces. You'd spend your days carefully coaxing life from the soil, planting potatoes, maize, and various tubers. It was back-breaking labor, but performed with a meditative focus. The sun would warm your back, the gentle breeze would rustle through the crops, and the sheer scale of the landscape would put your own efforts into a humbling perspective. There were no tractors, of course, just simple digging sticks and the strength of human hands. You might even see a particularly patient person using a small, sharp stone to carefully remove a weed, a testament to the meticulous care given to every plant. It's enough to make your own attempts at gardening feel like a rather aggressive assault on nature. Evenings would bring a different kind of quiet. As the sun dipped behind the peaks, painting the sky in hues of purple and orange, families would gather. Perhaps there would be storytelling passed down through generations, recounting myths of mountain spirits or the heroic deeds of ancestors. You might hear the gentle strumming of a stringed instrument, a low, melodic tune that seemed to echo the very contours of the landscape. There was no electricity, so light would come from small fires or the glow of the moon. It was a time for reflection, for connection, for simply being. The lack of artificial light would mean deeper, more restorative sleep, a luxury we often forget in our brightly lit modern world. A quirky tidbit about their daily life. It's believed that some Andean communities, including possibly this one, develop a unique system for record keeping and perhaps even storytelling using knotted strings called quipu. Imagine, instead of writing things down on paper, you tie intricate knots in various colors and patterns, each knot holding a piece of information. It's like a physical spreadsheet that you can wear. This wasn't just a practical tool. It was a form of art, a silent language understood by a select few. You can almost see an elder, their fingers nimble with age, slowly unraveling a quipu, recounting a tale or a harvest record, the knots themselves whispering secrets across time. It's a charmingly analog approach to data management, isn't it? Much less prone to accidental deletion than your phone's photo gallery, that's for sure. As your quiet journey through the city's past continues, your attention might drift to the unusual artistic expressions that adorn their lives. This wasn't art for art's sake in a gallery. It was deeply interwoven with their daily existence and spiritual beliefs. Imagine the pottery, not brightly glazed or intricately painted with dramatic scenes, but often subtle, earthy tones decorated with geometric patterns or stylized representations of local animals, llamas, condors, pumice rendered in a way that suggests reverence rather than mere depiction. The shapes themselves might be simple, functional, yet possess an inherent elegance, a quiet beauty born of utility. It's the kind of art that makes you feel calm, rather than excited, like watching a potter's hands at work, slow and deliberate. Their spiritual beliefs were, naturally, as deeply rooted in the Andes as the people themselves. They didn't worship distant, wrathful gods, but rather the very mountains that sustained them, the rivers that flowed through their valleys, and the sun that warmed their crops. You might imagine quiet offerings made not in grand temples, but sacred springs or atop a particularly prominent peak, a small bundle of coca leaves, perhaps, or a simple libation of corn beer. It was a spirituality of connection, of gentle reciprocity with the earth, where every act of farming or building was also an act of worship. There was a pervasive sense of gratitude, a humble acknowledgement of their dependence on the natural world. Historians still argue whether their religious practices involve elaborate ceremonies conducted by a priestly class or were more egalitarian, integrated into the fabric of daily life for everyone. It's a debate that highlights the quiet mystery of a culture that left behind more questions than definitive answers. Consider the textiles they produced. Not dazzling, brightly colored masterpieces like some later Andean cultures, but perhaps more subdued, woven from alpaca and llama wool. The patterns, however, might have been intricate, telling stories through repeated motifs, representing lineages, harvests, or cosmological ideas. Imagine the rhythmic thump-thump of a loom, a sound both ancient and soothing, as nimble fingers meticulously interwove threads, creating not just cloth, but a narrative. Each thread, each knot, each color choice held meaning, a silent language spoken through fabric. It's a testament to patience, isn't it? Something you could only achieve when life moved at a much slower pace, without the constant urgency of modern schedules. A quirky tidbit. Some scholars suggest that certain textile patterns might have even served as a form of nonverbal communication, a subtle way to convey status or family origin without uttering a single word. It was a society that communicated not just with sounds, but with textures and visual poetry. Their music, too, would have been gentle, reflective of the landscape. Pan flutes, with their airy, melancholic tones, perhaps accompanied by soft drums or the rhythmic shaking of gourd rattles. Imagine the sounds drifting across the valleys, not loud or boisterous, but subtle, blending with the wind, a soothing soundtrack to the endless expanse of the mountains. It was music designed not for dancing the night away, but perhaps for quiet contemplation, for calming the spirit after a long day of labor, or for accompanying slow, meditative ceremonies. You can almost feel the vibrations resonating through the stone, a gentle hum that permeates the very air. Even their architecture, which you're beginning to discern more clearly now, speaks of this quiet artistry. The way the stones fit together, so seamlessly, almost as if they grew from the earth. There's a deliberate lack of ostentation, a focus on harmony with the surroundings rather than imposing human will upon them. You might notice subtle carvings on doorways or lintels, not grand depictions of gods or rulers, but perhaps abstract designs or the understated outline of a condor in flight. It's an art that invites quiet contemplation, a gentle whisper rather than a shouted declaration. This entire city was a work of art, a masterpiece of quiet integration, designed to be in tune with the world, not to dominate it. It's almost as if they built their city to help you relax. As you settle deeper into the quiet contemplation of this lost Andean city, you can't help but marvel at the sheer ingenuity behind its engineering marvels. These weren't grand, boastful structures like Roman aqueducts or Egyptian pyramids. Instead, they were subtle, low-tech solutions, born of a profound understanding of their unique mountain environment. Imagine a place where every drop of water was precious, every square inch of arable land hard-won. Their engineering wasn't about brute force, but about a delicate dance with nature. Consider, for instance, their water management systems. You might gently float over the faint outlines of ancient channels, almost imperceptible now, but once vital arteries that brought life to the city. These weren't massive canals carved with heavy machinery, but often small, carefully sloped conduits that gently diverted spring water from higher elevations, sometimes across astonishing distances, to agricultural terraces and living areas. It was a sophisticated network of trickles and diversions, a masterpiece of fluid dynamics understood intuitively. It's almost as if they whispered to the water, convincing it to go exactly where it was needed. This kind of nuanced control meant minimizing erosion and maximizing every precious drop, an impressive feat when you consider the steep, unforgiving terrain. Historians still argue whether their water systems were managed centrally by a priestly elite or if local communities independently maintained their segments. It's a debate that highlights the delicate balance between top-down control and grassroots ingenuity in ancient societies. Then there are the roads. Not grand, paved highways for chariots, but narrow, winding paths, sometimes just wide enough for a single person or a file of llamas. These weren't built for speed, but for endurance and safety, hugging the contours of the mountainsides, often supported by precisely cut retaining walls. Imagine the hours spent, stone by patient stone, crafting these pathways that allowed movement through such treacherous landscapes. You can almost feel the gentle incline beneath your imaginary feet, the slow, steady rhythm of ancient travelers. A quirky tidbit: some of these paths were so perfectly graded that even today they offer a remarkably efficient and less strenuous ascent than modern, steeper trails. It's almost as if they designed them for a leisurely stroll, even when carrying heavy loads. Perhaps they knew that a relaxed journey made for a happier traveler. Their buildings, too, were marvels of quiet engineering. The interlocking stonework you've noticed before wasn't just aesthetic. It provided incredible seismic stability in an earthquake-prone region. Without mortar, each stone was cut and fitted so precisely that the structure could dance with the tremors, settling back into place rather than crumbling. It's the ultimate expression of flexible design, a gentle yielding to powerful forces. You can almost feel the subtle sway of the ancient walls, a comforting give rather than a rigid resistance. They understood that sometimes the strongest structures are the ones that are willing to move a little. Imagine the sheer patience required to construct such a city. There were no power tools, no explosive charges, just human hands, simple tools made of stone and bronze, and an unwavering commitment to craftsmanship. Every stone was individually selected, shaped, and placed. It reminds you that truly great things are often built slowly, deliberately, over generations. It wasn't about instant gratification. It was about laying foundations for the future, knowing that your grandchildren and their grandchildren would benefit from your labor. You might even imagine the gentle hum of chisels on stone, a rhythmic sound that would have accompanied the building process, a slow, methodical tune that helped builders fall asleep at night. Their entire world was a testament to the power of slow, deliberate effort, a concept that can feel wonderfully alien and deeply soothing in our hurried age. Drifting further through the gentle echoes of this lost city, you begin to perceive the whispers of trade that once connected this remote mountain community to the wider world. Unlike the bustling caravan routes of the old world, where camel trains roared with commerce, here, trade was a quieter, more arduous affair, a slow dance across dizzying altitudes and treacherous passes. It wasn't about mass production or global markets, but about the careful exchange of specialized goods, a lifeline that brought diversity and richness to their isolated existence. Imagine the hardy porters, or perhaps trains of sure-footed llamas, slowly making their way along those narrow mountain paths you observed earlier. They wouldn't be laden with silks and spices in the quantities found on the Silk Road, but perhaps with precious minerals, exotic bird feathers, or medicinal plants from the lowlands. In return, they might carry high-altitude goods like dried potatoes, a staple called chino, alpaca wool, or finely crafted stone tools. This wasn't a rapid exchange of goods. It was a slow, deliberate journey. Each item carried a testament to the effort involved. You could almost feel the rhythmic clop-clop of the llama's hooves, a soft, hypnotic sound that would have accompanied countless journeys across the Andean vastness. This trade fostered a quiet interdependency with other communities, both in the highlands and the fertile valleys below. While they excelled at mountain agriculture and stonecraft, they likely relied on lowland groups for certain tropical fruits, cotton, or perhaps even a taste of the Pacific Ocean's bounty, carefully preserved and brought up into the mountains. It was a network built on mutual need and respect rather than dominance. Historians still argue whether these trade routes were primarily controlled by specific kinship groups or if they were more open and accessible to any family with goods to exchange. It's a subtle distinction that paints a picture of their social organization. best contemplated as you drift deeper into slumber. A quirky tidbit about this ancient Andean trade. Some scholars suggest that the act of trading itself was imbued with spiritual significance, a communal ritual as much as an economic transaction. Imagine a quiet meeting between traders from different regions, not haggling fiercely over prices, but perhaps exchanging greetings and small, symbolic gifts before even beginning the discussion of goods. The process might have been as important as the outcome, a testament to the value placed on harmonious relationships. It was a world where trust was built on shared journeys and shared risks, where a handshake meant more than a written contract. Much less complicated than modern supply chains, wouldn't you say? No frantic emails about delayed shipments, just the patient anticipation of a llama train rounding the bend. The impact of this trade wasn't just economic. It brought a gentle flow of new ideas, new stories, and new perspectives into the secluded mountain city. While physically isolated, they weren't entirely cut off from the cultural currents of the broader Andean world. Imagine the stories told by the traders returning from distant valleys, tales of different landscapes, different customs, perhaps even new songs or melodies. This cultural exchange wouldn't have been a sudden flood, but a gradual, quiet seepage, enriching their own traditions without overwhelming them. It was a soft whisper of the outside world, a reminder that even in their lofty solitude, they were part of a larger, interconnected tapestry of life. You could almost hear the faint echoes of distant languages carried on the wind, a soothing murmur that only adds to the tranquility of this forgotten place. As your tranquil journey through the Andean past continues, a subtle shift begins to emerge, a delicate change in the air that whispers of a slow unraveling. You begin to sense the gentle hand of environmental shifts subtly altering the city's delicate balance. It wasn't a sudden cataclysm, no dramatic earthquake or volcanic eruption, but rather a gradual, almost imperceptible turn of the planetary dials, the kind that might take generations to fully manifest. Imagine the mountain streams, once reliable and steady, becoming a little less predictable. The crisp air, perhaps a touch warmer in certain seasons, or the rains arriving with slightly less consistency. One of the primary concerns for any high-altitude agricultural society is water. You might imagine the subtle changes in rainfall patterns. Perhaps the wet season, once a torrent of life-giving water, slowly began to shorten, or the dry season extended its parched embrace a little longer each year. This wouldn't be a sudden drought, but a creeping desiccation, a gentle tightening of the hydrological noose. The intricate irrigation systems, once so effective, would begin to strain under the changing conditions. Those cleverly designed channels you observed earlier might find themselves with less water to transport, or facing drier, thirstier fields. Historians still argue whether a prolonged drought or a series of colder, more challenging growing seasons had the more significant impact on their agricultural output. It's a debate that highlights the very real vulnerabilities of ancient societies to the whims of climate. Then there's the temperature. A gentle rise or fall in average temperatures, even by a few degrees over decades, could have profound effects on delicate mountain ecosystems. Imagine the crops, so carefully cultivated, beginning to struggle. Potatoes, perhaps, yielding smaller harvests. Quinoa, a resilient grain, finding itself pushed beyond its optimal growing conditions. This wasn't a sudden crop failure leading to immediate famine, but a slow, persistent decline in productivity, a nagging worry that would have settled over the community like a creeping shadow. It's the kind of long-term climate change that allows time for adaptation, but also for slow, debilitating stress. It makes you wonder how long they tried to coax the usual bounty from the earth before realizing the earth itself was changing its tune. A quirky tidbit: some archaeological evidence from other Andean sites suggests ancient communities sometimes responded to minor climate shifts by subtly adjusting their terracing techniques or experimenting with new crop varieties, almost as if they were gently nudging nature back into cooperation. Perhaps the inhabitants of this city attempted similar strategies, trying to outwit the changing weather with their timeless ingenuity. You might imagine them holding quiet discussions, perhaps during long evenings, debating whether to plant a hardier strain of maize or try a different type of potato that preferred slightly drier conditions. It was a silent, slow battle against an invisible, relentless opponent. The environmental shifts weren't just about water and temperature, though. Imagine the subtle changes in the local fauna. Perhaps certain migratory birds, once a reliable source of protein or feathers, began to alter their routes. Or maybe the native plants they relied upon for medicine or dyes started to become scarcer in the immediate vicinity, forcing them to venture further afield. Every subtle change, though seemingly minor on its own, would have added to a growing web of challenges. It's a reminder that even the most well-adapted societies are ultimately at the mercy of their environment. You can almost feel the slow, gentle pressure building, the subtle tug on the fabric of their daily existence, pulling them towards an uncertain future. This wasn't a sudden storm, but a slow, gathering cloud, obscuring the bright sun of their golden age. As the environmental changes slowly tighten their grip, you begin to sense a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in the city's social fabric, shifting power dynamics. This wasn't a dramatic coup or a violent uprising, but a quiet, internal reordering, perhaps exacerbated by the external pressures of a changing climate. Imagine the subtle murmurs of discontent, the quiet questioning of old traditions, as resources grew scarcer or predictable patterns of life became less certain. When a land no longer yields its bounty as freely, the old ways are inevitably scrutinized. Perhaps the authority of the elders, once undisputed due to their accumulated wisdom and deep understanding of the land, slowly began to wane. Younger, more pragmatic voices might have emerged, advocating for new strategies or different approaches to resource management. Or maybe certain families or groups who had better access to dwindling water sources or more resilient land quietly gained influence. It's the kind of slow, societal drift that often happens when a community faces sustained, low-level stress. Imagine the subtle shifts in conversation during evening gatherings, the quiet glances, the unsaid tensions that ripple through a close-knit group. Historians still argue whether these internal shifts were primarily driven by resource scarcity or by the rise of charismatic new leaders who challenged traditional authority. It's a fascinating chicken and egg question when contemplating societal change. A quirky tidbit: some archaeological studies in the Andes suggest that periods of environmental stress sometimes led to a greater emphasis on ritual and ceremony, almost as if people sought to appease the unpredictable natural forces through intensified spiritual practices. You might imagine the city's inhabitants turning more frequently to their mountain spirits, perhaps with longer, more fervent prayers for rain or sun. This could have, in turn, elevated the status of spiritual leaders or shamans, giving them greater sway in community decisions. It's a testament to the human need to find meaning and control, even when faced with overwhelming uncertainty. Perhaps they believed if they just danced a little harder or offered a few more coca leaves, the clouds would listen. The subtle changes might also manifest in their trade relationships. Remember those quiet whispers of exchange? As resources became scarcer within the city, they might have become more reliant on external trade for essential goods, or conversely, found their own surpluses dwindling, making them less valuable to their trading partners. This could lead to a quiet renegotiation of terms, perhaps putting them at a disadvantage, slowly eroding their self-sufficiency. You can almost feel the gentle pressure from beyond their mountain stronghold, a reminder that their isolated tranquility was not entirely immune to the larger world. Even the way they maintained their communal infrastructure might have shifted. Remember the meticulous terraces and water channels? As manpower became strained, or as priorities changed due to internal discussions, perhaps maintenance became less rigorous. A small crack in an irrigation channel left unrepaired, a terrace wall slowly eroding from neglect. These wouldn't be dramatic failures, but a gradual, almost imperceptible decline a quiet symptom of a community whose focus was subtly shifting. It's the kind of subtle decay that happens when a shared burden becomes just a little too heavy for too many hands. This slow, internal rebalancing, coupled with the relentless pressure from the changing environment, set the stage for the next, even quieter act in the city's story: its eventual, peaceful disappearance. The stage is now set for one of the most intriguing chapters in the city's quiet history. The slow migration begins. This wasn't a sudden, panicked flight from a burning city, but a gradual, almost imperceptible trickle of people, a decision born not of immediate catastrophe, but of long-term foresight and a deeply ingrained understanding of their environment. Imagine the quiet conversations around the evening fire, the subtle shifts in communal planning, as families individually and collectively began to assess their future in this increasingly challenging mountain home. You might imagine the first departures, perhaps a few younger families seeking new opportunities in more fertile valleys downstream, or joining distant kin. These weren't dramatic farewells with tears and lamentations, but perhaps quiet goodbyes, promises to visit, and the hope of a better life. The community wouldn't have instantly noticed a mass exodus. Rather, it would be a gradual thinning of the population, like leaves falling from a tree in late autumn, one by one, until the branches are noticeably bare. The reasons for leaving would have been varied, complex, and deeply personal, ranging from a longing for easier farming to the subtle call of other communities. Historians still argue whether the initial migrations were voluntary family choices or if there was a community-wide, collective decision to begin a phased relocation. It highlights the difficulty of discerning individual agency versus communal planning in the archaeological record. The city, at this point, wouldn't have looked abandoned. Far from it. You might still see smoke rising from hearths, children playing in the plazas, and farmers tending their terraces. But if you were an ancient resident, you might notice the subtle signs. A few less voices at the evening gathering, a slightly quieter marketplace, or perhaps a section of agricultural terraces that was previously tended now lying fallow, not from neglect, but because the family who cared for it had moved on. It was a slow, deliberate shrinking, a quiet contraction of life within its ancient walls. A quirky tidbit that hints at this slow departure. Some Andean cultures, when abandoning a settlement, would ritually close certain structures or offerings, a symbolic act of leaving and severing ties. While we can't say for sure if this specific city performed such rituals, imagine the solemnity of such an act, a quiet farewell to a place that had sustained generations. It would be a moment of profound respect for the land and the ancestors, a quiet acknowledgement that the time had come to move on. It's a beautifully graceful way to leave a home, isn't it? Much calmer than, say, forgetting your house keys when you finally move out. The decision to leave wouldn't have been taken lightly. These were people deeply connected to their ancestral lands, to the spirits of the mountains, and to the legacy of their forebears. The slow migration, therefore, speaks volumes about the mounting pressures they faced. It wasn't about avoiding hardship entirely, but about seeking a sustainable future for their descendants. They understood, with a profound wisdom rooted in generations of observation, that sometimes the most courageous act is to adapt, to gently shift one's path when the landscape itself begins to change. You can almost feel the weight of those decisions, the quiet conversations about where to go, what to take, and how to carry the spirit of their community to a new home. This gentle exodus was the precursor to the city's eventual, almost ethereal disappearance. The final act of the city's quiet drama was its abandonment, a quiet exodus. This wasn't a forced evacuation under duress, but the culmination of those slow migrations you sensed earlier. Imagine the city not suddenly empty, but slowly, gracefully, emptying itself, like sand slipping through an hourglass, grain by grain. You might float through what was once a bustling plaza, now echoing with only the whispers of the wind. The faint smell of wood smoke might still linger, a ghost of past fires, but no new embers glow. The last families to leave wouldn't have left in haste. They would have packed their belongings carefully, perhaps leaving behind tools that were too heavy to carry or pottery that had outlived its usefulness. There wouldn't be signs of struggle or violence, just the quiet, methodical actions of people making a difficult but necessary transition. You can almost see the last person turning from their doorway, taking one final, lingering look at the home that had sheltered generations, before stepping out onto the ancient path for the last time. It's a somber image, but also one of profound dignity. Historians still argue whether the abandonment was truly complete or if a small, resilient caretaker population remained for a time, performing rituals or tending to sacred sites before finally departing. This lingering question adds another layer of quiet mystery to its disappearance. The buildings, no longer warmed by human presence, would have begun their slow decay. The roofs, likely made of thatch and wood, would be the first to succumb to the elements, gently collapsing inward, allowing rain and sun to penetrate the once sheltered interiors. Without regular maintenance, the carefully fitted stones, while still remarkably stable, might begin to shift minutely, allowing moss and lichen to find purchase in tiny crevices. It's a natural, almost poetic process of deconstruction, a gentle return to the earth from which they came. You might hear the soft drip, drip, drip of water inside a once lively room, a slow, patient erasure. A quirky tidbit that sometimes accompanies such quiet abandonments. In some cultures, when a place is left, it's often believed that the spirits of the ancestors linger. So, as the last human footsteps faded, imagine the city becoming a sanctuary for these quiet spirits, a place where their memory could reside undisturbed. Perhaps the wind whistling through empty doorways was just them sighing contentedly, knowing their descendants had found a safer, more sustainable home. It's a comforting thought, a way to gently honor the continuity of life, even in the face of physical departure. They weren't leaving their history, they were carrying it with them. The quiet exodus wouldn't have been a secret. Neighboring communities, though perhaps distant, would have been aware of the thinning population, the gradual emptying of the mountain city. Perhaps some of the departing families resettled in these nearby villages, bringing with them their knowledge, their skills, and their stories. This wasn't a loss of a people, but a gentle redistribution, a shifting of human presence across the vast Andean landscape. The city itself became a monument to their patience, their adaptability, and their quiet wisdom to know when it was time to let go. You can almost feel the profound peace that settled over the empty structures, a deep, undisturbed silence that has lasted for centuries, waiting for your gentle observation. Now, as the human presence has faded, you witness the patient, deliberate process of nature reclaiming its own. This isn't a violent, destructive invasion, but a gentle embrace, a slow, verdant tide washing over the ancient stones. Imagine the mosses, initially just faint green smudges, patiently spreading across the sun-warmed surfaces, softening the sharp edges of cut stone. Lichens, those hardy pioneers, paint abstract patterns of pale green and gray, etching their slow artistry onto walls that once echoed with human voices. It's a quiet testament to the enduring power of the natural world, a gentle reminder that nothing truly remains static. The roots of trees, once small and unassuming, begin their relentless, slow work. Imagine a tiny seedling, perhaps dropped by a bird, finding purchase in a crack in a wall, its roots patiently seeking moisture and nutrients. Over decades, centuries even, these roots would grow, exerting a gentle, persistent pressure, slowly dislodging stones, prying apart tightly fitted blocks. You might see a massive tree, its trunk a testament to centuries of quiet growth, its roots now entirely enveloping an ancient doorway, turning a man-made structure into a natural sculpture. It's a beautifully slow process, a quiet collaboration between time and botany, turning a city into a garden of forgotten dreams. Historians still argue whether the type of vegetation that first colonized the site accelerated or slowed the process of structural decay. It's a subtle ecological puzzle, perfectly suited for a sleepy ponder. The soft hum of insects, once perhaps a background drone to human activity, now becomes a dominant sound. Bees might build their nests in sheltered nooks of ancient structures, their gentle buzzing a new kind of vitality. Spiders spin intricate webs across doorways and windows, turning once functional openings into delicate, ephemeral works of art, glistening with morning dew. Birds, no longer wary of human presence, find ideal nesting spots in the collapsing roofs and overgrown courtyards. You might hear the distant cry of a condor, circling lazily high above, a silent guardian of this re-wielded space. The city becomes a silent sanctuary for the local fauna, a place where their ancient rhythms can unfold undisturbed. A quirky tidbit about this reclamation. In some deeply overgrown archaeological sites, the roots of certain trees have been found to act almost like natural preservation agents, holding fragile structures together even as they slowly dismantle others. It's a paradoxical relationship, a gentle push and pull between destruction and preservation, all orchestrated by the quiet forces of nature. Imagine the slow, patient work of a fig tree, its roots embracing a stone wall like an old friend, preventing it from tumbling entirely. It's a reminder that nature is rarely just one thing. It's a complex tapestry of gentle interactions. The very air itself changes. It becomes heavy with the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and a vibrant perfume of wild orchids clinging to ancient stones. The filtered light, dappled by the encroaching canopy, casts long, shifting shadows, giving the ruins a dreamlike quality. You're not just seeing the remnants of a city. You're witnessing an ecosystem in flux, a vibrant new life blooming from the vestiges of the old. It's a profoundly peaceful transformation, a gentle fading into the green, a quiet return to the wild embrace of the mountains. The whispers of human history slowly give way to the rustle of leaves and the chirp of unseen creatures, a lullaby of timeless renewal. Centuries drift by, and with them, the clear memory of the city slowly fades from human consciousness. You now witness the accidental rediscovery attempts, a series of quiet, often unfruitful forays by later inhabitants or intrepid explorers who stumbled upon hints of its existence but never quite grasped its full significance. Imagine a lone Andean farmer, perhaps searching for a lost llama, finding a section of unusually uniform stones half buried beneath a landslide. He might marvel at the craftsmanship, perhaps even reuse a few stones for his own modest dwelling, but the idea of a vanished city wouldn't fully form in his mind. To him, it's simply part of the ancient, enigmatic landscape. These aren't grand archaeological expeditions with fanfare and funding, but more like whispers of possibility, fleeting glimpses that don't quite cohere into a full understanding. You might imagine a Spanish chronicler, during the colonial era, making a passing note of old ruins in a remote valley, dismissed as insignificant compared to the glittering gold of the Inca Empire. Their focus was elsewhere, on conquest and conversion, not on the subtle poetry of a peacefully abandoned settlement. It's a quirky tidbit, isn't it? How sometimes the greatest discoveries are hidden in plain sight, obscured not by physical barriers, but by the preconceptions and priorities of the observer. They were looking for grand statements, not quiet disappearances. Perhaps a local curandero, a traditional healer, might have known of the site as a sacred place, a quiet retreat for contemplation or the gathering of rare medicinal plants. To them, it wouldn't be a lost city, but a living, breathing connection to the ancestral spirits of the mountains, a place of power and healing. They might leave offerings, perform quiet ceremonies, but never disturb its slumber with the clamor of excavation. Their respect for the land and its history would have preserved its secret more effectively than any wall. Historians still argue whether early indigenous knowledge of such sites was intentionally suppressed or simply misinterpreted by later European chroniclers. It points to the often overlooked depth of local historical memory. You can almost feel the frustration of these early, unwitting explorers. They might have walked over faint pathways or stood unknowingly on the edges of ancient plazas, the verdant growth concealing the city's true extent. The jungle and cloud forest are masterful at camouflage, weaving a dense, living blanket over human endeavors. It's like searching for a dropped needle in a very, very large and very green haystack, while also being quite sleepy. The sheer scale of the Andes, its vastness, and its ability to absorb human traces made serious, systematic discovery incredibly difficult before modern mapping techniques and archaeological methods. These accidental encounters only added to the mystique, creating local legends and whispered tales of hidden places, but never quite leading to its full revelation. The city remained in its quiet slumber, guarded by the very nature it had once lived in harmony with, awaiting a different kind of eye, a different kind of patience, to finally bring its story gently into the light. These early attempts were like dreams that just wouldn't quite resolve, leaving the city undisturbed in its long, serene sleep. We now arrive at the era of modern exploration and theories, where contemporary archaeologists and intrepid researchers finally begin to peel back the verdant shroud from this long-lost city. Unlike those earlier accidental encounters, these endeavors are marked by systematic study, often employing technologies that would have seemed like pure magic to the city's original inhabitants. Imagine remote sensing equipment, perhaps even gentle drones equipped with LiDAR, softly mapping the terrain from above, revealing the faint, ghostly outlines of structures hidden beneath centuries of jungle growth. It's a quiet revelation, a slow-motion discovery that respects the city's long slumber. These modern explorations aren't about digging for treasure. They're about understanding, about gently assembling the pieces of a very old puzzle. You might imagine a team of dedicated archaeologists, meticulously clearing away layers of earth and vegetation with brushes and small trowels, revealing the perfectly fitted stones, one by patient one. Their excitement isn't a loud cheer, but a quiet, almost reverent hum of discovery as the city slowly, gently, begins to breathe again under their careful hands. It's a testament to patience, isn't it? The kind of patience that only true passion for history can inspire, a far cry from the hurried pace of modern life. Historians still argue whether the discovery and preservation of such sites should prioritize minimal intervention or more extensive excavation for public access. It's a thoughtful debate, best left to the quiet hours before sleep. These discoveries lead to a plethora of theories about the city's disappearance, each one proposed with quiet deliberation, none with absolute certainty. Perhaps you hear a gentle academic voice discussing the subtle shifts in agricultural viability, how a gradual decline in crop yields over generations made the continued sustenance of a large population increasingly difficult. Or another might suggest a subtle change in regional power dynamics, not a violent invasion, but a quiet redirection of trade or political influence that made the city less central, less vital, leading to its gentle decline. It's like listening to very intelligent people calmly speculate on a very old, very polite mystery. A quirky tidbit that often emerges from such modern studies. Sometimes, archaeologists discover that certain features of the abandoned city were actually repurposed by later, smaller groups. Imagine finding evidence of a tiny, temporary camp within a grand plaza, perhaps used by passing traders or temporary residents, hundreds of years after the main population departed. It's a fleeting echo of human presence, a reminder that even in abandonment, a place can still offer shelter or utility, a quiet whisper across the centuries. It's like finding a small, forgotten picnic blanket in a grand, empty hall. The insights gained from modern exploration are less about finding definitive answers and more about appreciating the nuanced complexity of ancient life. They confirm that this city didn't die a dramatic death, but slowly faded like a cherished memory that gently recedes with time. The theories, though varied, share a common thread. They acknowledge the profound sensitivity of this Andean civilization to its environment, and their remarkable wisdom in knowing when to adapt, even if that meant leaving their home to nature's gentle embrace. You can almost feel the quiet satisfaction of these modern minds, understanding a history that unfolds not with shouts, but with soft, scientific whispers. And so, we come to the quiet conclusion of our journey, leaving the ancient stones and verdant shroud of this Andean mystery behind, but allowing its essence to linger. The city sleeps on, not truly lost, but transformed, held gently in the vast embrace of the mountains. Its story isn't one of grand tragedy or violent collapse, but a testament to a profound understanding of life's subtle rhythms and the wisdom of knowing when to yield. You can almost feel the enduring peace that settled over the empty structures, a deep, undisturbed silence that has lasted for centuries, a profound quietude that invites reflection. The faint echoes of laughter, the soft shuffle of ancient footsteps, the gentle hum of activity, they're all still there, not as sounds, but as impressions, as the lingering spirit of a people who lived in harmony with their demanding world. The city remains, a silent guardian of secrets whispered only to the wind and the patient earth. Historians still argue whether the quiet abandonment of such sites represents a failure of civilization or, conversely, a profound act of cultural adaptation and survival. It's a thought that might just accompany you as you drift off into your own quiet rest. There's a comfort in this gentle ending, isn't there? No grand battles, no catastrophic endings, just a slow, almost artistic fading. It reminds you that sometimes the most enduring legacies are not etched in stone, but whispered through generations, carried in the gentle wisdom of knowing when to let go. The mountain air, crisp and pure, continues to weave through the ancient doorways, carrying the scent of damp earth and the quiet promise of renewal. The trees, now towering over once proud walls, stand as silent sentinels, guarding the city's peaceful slumber. A quirky thought to carry into your dreams. Perhaps in the deepest quiet of the night, if you listen very, very closely, you can hear the mountain spirits sighing contentedly, watching over the city that once housed so many, now return to their embrace. It's a lullaby sung by centuries of wind and rain, a soft chorus that reminds us of the fleeting nature of human endeavor and the timeless persistence of the natural world. Now, as the final images of the mist-shrouded peaks and moss-covered stones gently recede from your mind, feel the soft comfort of your bed beneath you. The cool air, the gentle sounds around you, all contribute to this moment of profound tranquility. Let your breathing deepen, slow and steady, like the quiet flow of an ancient mountain stream. The weight of the day, the gentle hum of your thoughts, everything softens, loosens its grip. Imagine yourself drifting, like a feather on a soft breeze, deeper and deeper into a serene and undisturbed sleep. The vanished city has told its story, a gentle tale of enduring peace. Allow yourself to be carried away by that quiet, profound calm. Let your mind clear, your body relax, and surrender to the soothing depths of true rest.